If you want to buy a high-end controller to game on PC or PS5 or PS5 Pro for competitive gaming that's going to give you the best possible performance, this is the right video for you, because I have tried every single controller in existence. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly which one is better in what and what's the best value for money overall and also the best performer overall. Now, I have tried the following brands: SCUF, Hex controller, Aim controller, Razer, custom-made extreme rate controller, and the DualSense Edge. The rest of the brands I don't really consider as strong contender. I have also tried the Astro, but it was the older model and I really disliked it, so I'm just not gonna include it in the video. Let's get started. First off, I'm gonna give you a little bit of background about me, because I think if you're choosing a controller, you should choose it for your own needs. So there is not one best controller to do it all. There is one for any specific game or use case. Now, I used to play competitive in Call of Duty. I never went pro because I wasn't good enough, but I played competitive for a while, and I went through a lot of controllers for my personal use. And when I was a teenager, I basically spent all the money I have saved up in controller and gaming equipment. So I bought around 6 SCUF controllers for PS4, the whole lineup at the time. And here's the thing, the ugly truth, which nobody is mentioning in reviews. High-end controllers are like a sports car with an engine built to race. It's not gonna last long if you game competitively on it. So the reason why I bought 6 SCUF controllers when I was a teenager is not because I was a spoiled kid just throwing around the controllers, it's because they would break. After a while, you would get stick drifting and the paddles on the back would break all the time. They had the old school paddles, the straight ones attached on the back. Amazing feeling, especially since the game I was playing competitively on was Black Ops 3, so we had double jumps, but they were not gonna last long. You could just tell by the design, which is why nowadays they make controllers in a very, very different way. Even SCUF itself has a completely different design. Even though they still have pretty much paddles, they don't break as much anymore, but they still break. So every single controller I've tried is gonna get stick drifting after a while, and it is gonna get damage on the back. The only controller at the moment which does not get stick drifting is this, and it's the Hex controller Phantom Ultimate. Basically, this doesn't have a mechanical thumbstick anymore, but it has an Hall effect thumbstick. But we will discuss this controller later. Price-wise, okay? The most expensive ones are the SCUF. Now, if you go on SCUF website, you can see, and they tell you that you can buy one for around 230 bucks. That's not the case, because if you want to actually get a good controller, you want the top spec with digital triggers. So if you're gonna buy that, it starts at around 300 bucks, but even 300 bucks is not what you're gonna pay for it. I spec'd mine out, take a look on the screen without going crazy with the spec, and it's basically over 400 bucks for a controller, which is crazy. I used to pay like 230 bucks for my controllers back in the day, and which means I spent over $1,000 in controllers. SCUF is by far the most expensive one. The second most expensive one is this Hex controller Phantom. This thing comes in at 250 bucks with the whole bundle, where you get the box. I'm gonna show you the unboxing. It's pretty cool. You get the box, interchangeable thumbsticks, the Hall effect programmer, which we're gonna talk about later, and a cable, all for that price. However, coming in cheaper than this, there is the Sony PS5 Edge. Now, the Edge is the official professional gaming controller from Sony, and it is a very good controller, okay? It has less wear and tear than SCUF. It lasts a lot longer, especially since the buttons are made differently. Now, shape of the button is something we need to talk about, okay? So I'm gonna show you what the buttons are on the SCUF, what the buttons are on the Edge, and what the buttons are on the various Hex controllers models, which I have over here. Now, if I had to do an in-depth review of every single controller, this video would be very long, so I'm gonna just tell you why I do not pick all the choices which I'm not making. I'm not picking SCUF anymore because they last the least, in my opinion, in my experience, and I've tried a lot, and they are the most expensive. If money is no issue for you, I still think SCUF is the best controller. But the difference with the second and third place is minimal, and I'm talking really minimal. Unless you're filthy rich, I think you can spend your money a bit better. But SCUF, first place still, because they just, when you pay 400 bucks for a controller, you know it's a good controller, okay? But it's too expensive. I am not picking Razer, because I just don't like the feel. I think the buttons are not the best. I don't like it. I also think it's a bit too expensive, you know, $300 for a Razer controller, not worth it. At this point, I think the only contenders, which are real contenders, are Hex controller and the Edge from Sony. Now, the Edge is a very good joystick, and the good thing is you can buy it directly on Amazon with all the warranty which you can get there. It has a strong value proposition. However, best value for money controller, in my opinion, is the Hex controller Ultimate, the one of which I have 2 different versions, which I'm gonna show you guys right now, and it's what I've been detailing for the past year. So you have a blue version and a red version. I've spec'd them out, and now these start off at $160, which is pretty cheap for the kind of controller which they are. You can also get a discount code of 5% because they do a lot of affiliates. I don't have one, but I will try to get one if I manage to. I'll put it down in the description below. And if you can't use mine, just use whatever and just get 5% off. So it's gonna be like under $150 total for the controller, which is very good in my opinion for what you're getting. You're getting interchangeable thumbsticks, so you can customize them the way you want. With SCUF, you can just pick one of what you like, which is crazy in my opinion. Just throw me a few extra thumbsticks, come on. And you're getting a controller with hair triggers, a very cool backside, which is actually my favorite backside of them all. The Phantom, which I like a lot. These buttons are cool, but I still prefer the other ones in the previous Hex controller version. So value for money definitely wins the lower end Hex controller. But now here we go to my personal pick. Okay, so my personal pick, you probably guessed it, is this Hex controller Phantom. So it just came out, costs $250 with a full bundle, or $220 to $230 if you buy just the controller. If you get the 5% off, you're gonna pay just a little bit over $200. The only issue is at the moment you can't spec it out, so you have to choose one of the designs which are out there. I picked this one, which I think looks cool. I'm gonna be fully honest, it's not the best looking controller. I think if they open the customization set like you have with SCUF, it's going to be even better value proposition, but still it looks nice. Looks is not why I pick it, even though I like a good looking controller. Here's the thing. This thing has the grip, which you have to pay a lot to get it in a SCUF, and you have switchable triggers, okay? So if you want to play a racing game, you can just switch this off and you actually have full length 7mm triggers, which is pretty useful. It is fully remappable on the back with this button. You can assign any button you want to any of the buttons, but on this price point, this is the same for every single controller. You can switch out the actual thumbsticks, as we talked about. Here you get 8 thumbsticks as well as you would with a regular Hex controller. But the reason why I like this controller a lot is it is pretty much immune to wear. Now, of course, it's not eternal, it's gonna last you a few years, but it's a lot better than a few months. And that's all thanks to the Hall effect on the thumbsticks. So basically, they are now digital. They use an electromagnetic phenomenon to basically get your input. They even give you, in the packaging, if you pick the Hall effect version, they give you a little programmer which allows you to recalibrate your thumbsticks over time. So what happens is when you get it, you just calibrate it. It's all in the guide. You just connect the little tool over here and it will do everything by itself. And it's gonna feel crazy. Okay, now the input is gonna be a lot different from a standard controller. So at first I wasn't really used to it because you have a lot less resistance when you move it around. But after calibrating it, it's a lot better. It's still gonna feel like extremely responsive, even too responsive at the beginning, but you can zero out your dead zone. And that's the crazy thing. Now I'm talking a bit more specific, but if you're looking for high-end controller, I suppose you are a competitive gamer, so I expect you to know what dead zone is. But basically, you can play with zero dead zone forever with this, which means no sense change. You can play at higher sense, and in long shots especially, this thing is super helpful. If you play sniper, this feels so much better. That's just one of the point of wear which they fixed. The other thing is the back buttons, okay? So the ones in the previous Hex controller, they are my favorite buttons so far ever, but they break. They break with the same velocity as SCUF controller used to do, which is pretty quick. Again, maybe it's my fault because I do click stuff pretty harsh. I have big hands, you know, so I'm not saying they're gonna break for everybody, but it's my experience, they broke for me. And I have 3 Hex controllers, so I know what I'm talking about. Now these, since they are not clicking on the side, because listen, buttons break when they're not buttons. When they are levers, so basically you click on one side and the other side is gonna actually click the button, that's when they break. If you have a straight on button, it's basically never gonna break. So that's why they switched to this, and I think they are relatively ergonomical even for me. So these work. You have 4 buttons, which is what you need nowadays, because you can't ever take your thumb off of this if you wanna actually do some competitive gaming. And so even that weak point was solved. But now we had one last one, which I was sure, I was like, I'm gonna make this review and I'm gonna recommend this controller, but I'm gonna just tell to people that they're gonna break the side of their ring on the thumbstick, because it has happened to me on all my previous Hex controllers, and it's probably the biggest reason why I was not recommending them too much. I haven't made a video about them yet, because they were good value, but they had a failing point, and that is, again, the side of the thumbstick. But Hex controller included with this a protective rubber ring, which you go and put on the thumbstick. Now the crazy thing is you can actually retrofit it. When I got it, they give you a lot. I just went ahead and put it on my old Hex controller joysticks, and now they don't wear out anymore. What was happening before, I will show you the footage of the actual plastic dust which was coming off straight off my thumbstick, is since when you play pretty aggressively, you just push when you're running against the side of your joystick. What was happening is it was grinding off the actual thumbstick. So over time it would make friction and it would aim worse. Now, it wasn't really happening too much on the aim button, but on the run button it was terrible. It's the one you saw the footage of. So with this we also fixed that, and it doesn't feel worse. I'm definitely keeping it on my movement thumbstick. I'm not sure I'm keeping it on my aim thumbstick, just because I like the sense of being able to, you know, just go through it. But I think if I get used to it, it's probably gonna be worth it, even on the aim. But I have to report to you guys back on that. This is basically it for my recommendation on controllers. So to recap, if you have money to waste and you know you're buying a race car, you don't care if it's gonna break, just buy a $400 SCUF Reflex FPS. It's the best controller out there. If you care even a little bit about money, you can save $150 roughly, close to 200, and get this thing, which is crazy good for the price, even though still pretty expensive. And if you're on a budget, best value for money is gonna be one of these, which still look nice, you can customize them, and they are a lot cheaper. And they have the best feeling on the back ever. So with that said, let me know what you guys think about it. Let me know if you're a competitive player too, and if you have a different controller which you like, please drop a comment and let me know down below. And I hope to see you guys again in another video. Bye bye.